General thoughts, like as the Pacers were wrapping up their game last night, and I was looking forward to the finals. Kind of what I expected to happen, or like what I hope happens. Um, First off, I'm really scared that as fun and as good as this Pacers team is, that OKC is just a different animal, and that the finals is kind of going to fall flat as a matchup. Um, because we've seen the Pacers all playoffs and really all season, or at least post or the turn of the new year. They've played this really fast paced offense that's so fun to watch, and they do it somehow while limiting turnovers. And therefore, like they win the turnover battle, which is huge, and it gives them even more fast break opportunities and more easy looks. Um, and a credit to them, they execute it phenomenally. But this OKC defense is just different. And so I'm just worried, like we've seen multiple teams run into this issue. This playoffs is like, oh wow, this is a good team, but scoring on OKC, it doesn't really matter if you're a good team. Honestly, it's something that's really really hard to do. So I'm a little worried. Like it's a contrast of styles. But in my brain, initial analysis is I trust OKC's really stout defense that just with ball pressure and forces all these turnovers. I don't know. I trust that a little more than this Pacers offense, which I don't want to make it sound like I'm dogging on the Pacers. This Pacers run has been phenomenal. It's been a ton of fun, and they deserve all the credit for the style of offense they're running and their execution of it because no one has stopped it up to this point. So, but that was kind of my biggest initial thought was just kind of the contrast of styles and how that was going to play out, which has been the huge talking point as we've kind of seemingly come to realize that this probably was going to be the inevitable matchup in the finals.
This sounds a lot like what we were saying a week and a half ago, previewing the Western Conference Finals with the Timberwolves and the Thunder. Where, yeah, like the Timberwolves are a really great team, really great story, but they're just not to the level of
Sure.
OKC. They played twice this season. Thunder won both games, and they won both games playing the Pacers' way. In the two games, the Thunder scored 136 points and 124 points.
Yeah.
In those two games, the Pacers scored 106 and 111, I believe. Um, so this is a Thunder team, and I feel this way even without hearing that. They are going to be able to play their style of basketball without an issue. They are a team that can turn you over, and they score a ton and gain a lot of momentum off those turnovers. But they're also what they showed in the Nuggets series and the Timberwolves series. They're really good on the half court too. Shea's really good at finding his spot. J Dub is great at getting downhill and finishing at the
Yeah.
rim. And then Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein's lob threats are very good. And then whoever that fifth guy is,
They should even hit
like
some shots potentially.
Lou Dort, Caruso, and Casey Wallace have all been hitting threes
Yeah.
for much of the postseason. So it'll be they're a complete team. I do
Yeah.
think though the Pacers have a good chance to take this deep. I think they've got that kind of moxie behind them.
I
I
agree.
think this being the second postseason in a row where they're making a deep playoff run with the same core of guys, I think it's going to help them a ton. Now the Thunder are in that same spot as well. This is their second postseason, more of a deep run this time than last time. But I think the Pacers have a little bit of an edge there with the experience. I mean, they have an NBA champion in Pascal Siakam,
Who has been
and
great.
yeah, he's been Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And for me, he's the X factor of the entire series. In my eyes, he's the only guy that the Thunder don't match up well with defensively. Because I guess I'd put Caruso on him,
I think you
but
have to.
I still think Siakam is he's bigger than Caruso. He's going to be able to post up Caruso. He's going to be able to shoot over him, and he is kind of the X factor. So I'm going to go and throw it out right now. For the Pacers to win a game in this series, Siakam has to score 28 plus.
Okay.
And every time he scores 28 plus, I think they have a good chance to win that game.
Yeah,
If
it's
he doesn't do that, I just don't see where the scoring comes from for the Pacers because I don't expect Halliburton to play well against all these guard defenders. And Miles Turner can't even post up Chet Holmgren, in my opinion.
Miles Turner, for how good the Pacers have been this playoffs, he's had a lot of matchups in a lot of games where he's really struggled. And I mean, even defensively, thinking just about how much Cat feasted on him in the last series is pretty worrisome. He honestly had some moments where it was kind of hard for Rick Carlisle to keep him on the court. So I completely agree. It is a weird thing. Like, you can try and put Alex Caruso on Pascal Siakam, and we've seen Caruso have great success with that. But Siakam was feasting on the Knicks' smaller players that are bigger than Caruso. Like if you got a Mikal Bridges or an OG on, if Pascal Siakam got a mismatch on one of those two guys, he had no problem backing them down and hitting a turnaround, above them, and there's just nothing they could do. So I completely agree with that X factor. I hope this is a series where haymakers are thrown from both sides. I feel like both these teams are really good at putting together runs. Just because the Pacers, one, they play so fast, and they'll just kind of get going. And like you said, that moxie, they kind of get that energy behind them for just kind of multiple runs a series where suddenly they've scored, 18 points in, a few minutes. And then on the other side, OKC does it with their defense, where suddenly they've turned you over 4 times in 4 minutes, and they've put together a 12-0 run, and suddenly it feels like you've lost the game, and the game's behind you. So, I don't know. I really hope it's just a game of runs, but close at the same time, which I know doesn't make a ton of sense. Maybe a game of trading runs, I should say. So
Yeah, I think a lot of the games are going to play out that way. I don't necessarily expect a ton of like back and forth trading baskets. I think trading runs is exactly what we're going to see. I think for like the other like key thing for the Pacers is they've got to limit turnovers, and they're great at doing that. But OKC is the best defense in the league, and I think that's another thing. If the Pacers turn it over 10 or more times, I don't see them winning games that way.
Sure.
Especially if these turnovers are being produced into points at the other end for the Thunder. I think that's a huge factor. For me, I don't necessarily feel like the Pacers have to play 48 great minutes. And I said that a ton in the Timberwolves series because they are so good at scoring more points than you could ever imagine in 3 minutes.
Sure.
I think they can play bad for an 8-minute stretch in a game and still be in it.
Yeah.
They're that productive offensively.
They just can't let it spiral, which is they're a team I trust not to do that. I think they have a good mental edge where if OKC puts together a good run, they can bounce back from it. Kind of the opposite of Minnesota, whereas as soon as OKC threw their punch, in the third quarter, it felt like almost every game. They're in the final game, they threw their punch in the first 3 minutes. Minnesota couldn't get up off the mat. And I would like this Pacers team a lot more to get up off the mat. So another thing, too, we've talked a lot about with the Pacers, just talking matchup-wise or just, comparison-wise. They've had depth unlike any other team in the Eastern Conference. And that's really allowed them to play their style very well. Rick Carlisle will play like 10 guys. He'll bring a guy off the bench, and it's like, oh, I didn't even know this guy was in the league. But the Thunder are another really deep team. They have tons of options off the bench. So you're not really going to be able to wear them out like you were able to the Knicks teams. The Knicks team where you got deep in the fourth quarter and you could tell that the Knicks team was gassed. And all the Pacers were pretty fresh. So I'm interested to see, one, how that dynamic plays out, and really how much that was helping the Pacers with their prolific scoring was just being able to wear out other teams. I'm also curious if Rick Carlisle is going to be able to play this many guys against a team that's so good defensively, like OKC. Like, can you trust Thomas Bryant out there to play, more than a couple minutes at a time? Can you trust Ben Shepherd to be safe with the ball, and so he can play more than a couple minutes at a time? Stuff like that is going to be pretty key in this series.
Yeah, those are good points there. For the Thunder side, I think they've just got to play their style of basketball. I think it'll be key for the other two guys not named Shea to provide a punch offensively, because they're going to need it. Like,
yes,
their defense is great, but in the two games that they played, the Pacers got over that 105 mark that I talked about in last episode. And so they're going to need to find that scoring. And I don't think they're going to have a big issue with it.
I agree.
because there's not necessarily a matchup that is going to shut them down. But the only thing I think that could is the mental aspect.
Sure.
Where this is their first NBA Finals, and this is the biggest moment of their lives, even for like Chet Holmgren, who's played in a lot of huge minutes, who's been, this wonder boy for 6 years now. It feels like that could be the interesting factor. And I said it earlier, but it feels like the Pacers won't necessarily have that problem.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing as a Thunder guy and a guy who's picked them to win the finals, that's my only question is, are they going to be able to, especially early on in the series, get over that mental edge of this is the NBA Finals?
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge thing too for like the crowds as well. Like that's a huge factor here. I think with the Knicks and their issues so far in the Garden in the last 2 seasons, it's played a ton in the fact that the Knicks fans are nervous, and you can feel their emotion throughout the entire game, and you can feel like if Cat misses a three, like groans from the entire crowd. There's a turnover, you have groans and shouting. I think it'll be key. Like, not that it's kind of weird saying it as a factor, but I think it's a huge factor for the Thunder that their home court advantage continues to be what it is because the fans continue to be the way that they are with the utmost confidence in their young players.
Yeah. I agree. That's a good point. We have seen young teams or younger teams just kind of crumble under the pressure. But if I could give some, some support or just props to the Thunder is anytime we've seen them falter in these playoffs, if J-Dub has had a bad performance or Chet has had a bad performance, they've really done a good job bouncing back and showing resilience in that regard. So I get the worry, but it's not something I'm really too concerned about.
I'm not terribly concerned either, and it comes back again to what I had been saying for much of the playoffs for them is that this is not your typical young team because they have the pieces of like even Lou Dort, who's played for a long time, and Caruso, who's been to the NBA Finals, and he's a champion as well. Sorry for not mentioning him earlier with Siakam, but and Hartenstein as well. Like I don't have a lack of confidence, but I do think it's something that could happen, especially in Game 1.
Yeah,
I think there's a really good chance I pick the Pacers to win Game 1 on Wednesday night when we talk about Game 1.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it's something people forget too is the fact that Shea's 27, I believe. So he's a lot older than the other guys. He's no longer a young player. He has a ton of games under his belt, a lot of experience, not necessarily a ton in these big moments. But he's been around the block. He's played a ton of games. He's played on a team with Chris Paul, who people view as a really good mentor. Just because they've gotten really good these past couple years, I feel like sometimes people view him on the same kind of trajectory or timeline as like a Chet or a J-Dub in that kind of mentality and age regard, and that's just simply not the case. So, once again, I'm really hoping we get a fantastic series. It feels like there's definitely a world where we do, but we've just talked about how good this Thunder team is time and time again. And it may just kind of end up being a thing where they just simply are inevitable, and there's just no way to beat them multiple times in a 7-game series, or not beat them multiple times, but beat them 4 times in a 7-game series, especially since they've got over that Denver Nuggets hump. So,
and they're big favorites in this series. I haven't looked and saw what the line was today, but I believe yesterday they were roughly like minus 1,000 to win this series.
Gotcha.
So
that's
much
insane.
Of the public in Vegas agrees as well. It's the biggest one since the Warriors with KD played the Cavs without Kyrie.
Yeah.
In that NBA Finals, the Warriors were minus 2,000 favorites, and then you have the infamous J.R. Smith game.
Yeah, LeBron drops 51 in Game 1, and J.R. Smith does his dance.
Yeah, crazy. All-time NBA moment. Inevitable is the word. This team's too damn good. They're two defense with championships, and they are the best defense in the league. And these young guys have really, really risen, and they've all had substantial playoff moments so far in this postseason, I don't see them having much of an issue.
Sure.
I think they're going to win this series in 5 on their home floor. That's kind of how I feel. I do think, though, and I'll say it again on Wednesday, Game 1 is critical to the series. If the Thunder win Game 1, it's over. If the Pacers were to win Game 1, though, I think it's a coin flip.
Sure.
Genuinely, I think the Pacers being able to get up that one game first plays a massive factor going forward in the rest of the series.
Yeah, we've identified the problem with the little bit of static, and it's if I put my phone down on the desk, it gives the static, and I don't know why that's the case, but it is.
I think it's because the static is coming through this thing, and something about it being on the table is messing with your phone connecting to that.
It's just like too close, or I don't know.
It's too close, or it's going through the board.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Figured it out though.
yeah. As for predicting the series, I also I told Harris earlier Pacers, Thunder in 6, but I like Thunder in 5, and the idea of them closing it out on their home court. They really are just too damn good. I mean, they've just been special all season, and they've backed it up these playoffs. So, great run from the Pacers, but I just see it stopping here.
I expect them to win the first 2 games at home, split in Indiana, and win in Game 5 on their home floor.
Sure. Sweet. I think that's all for NBA, unless you want to give out a prediction, Sanders. For
No,
the
I mean,
series.
I'll make my pick. I'll say if I were a betting man, I'd bet on the Thunder, but I'm going to pick the Pacers in 7.
Okay. Good. We no jinx from the Technical Foul Cast.
Correct.
Way to diversify.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably got good odds. I want to see if that's got good odds. I might look at that later today.
Yeah, it probably does have good odds. Not as good of odds if you pick Pacers in 4 or something like that. But